Okay. So you'll notice that in the lesson questions today, they are 4th degree polynomials instead of being 3rd degree or squared. So sometimes you can factor a polynomial of higher degree, so 3rd degree, 4th, 5th, whatever, using techniques that you used for polynomials of lower degree. Okay. So the top few questions ask us just to factor. The bottom questions are going to ask us to solve. Okay, so just pay attention to the direction. So step 1 is going to be to rewrite the polynomial. Actually, I don't like these. I changed this last year. Just factor it using a quadratic pattern. So you do have to get it in the form, standard form. That's still important. But when you go to factor this, I used to make you use a variable a and make it much more difficult. Last year I taught differently, worked out better. Instead of putting an x and an x, we need it to multiply to be x to the 4th. So we're going to put x squared and x squared. Technically you could have x cubed and x to the 1st, but they're going to be x squareds typically when you use these quadratic patterns. And then, since this is a 1, that makes it easy, because we just have 1 and 1. So now we just have to say what multiplies to negative 27 and adds to negative 6. Abby? Close. Negative 9, positive 3. We want to add to a negative 6. And if we're factoring, we do want to see if any of them can be factored further. So you want to check and see, can any of these go down? Well, yes, this is the difference of squares, right? 9 is a perfect square. So this would be x plus 3 and x minus 3. Can we factor x squared plus 3? No. So that would just stay. Anytime you see an x squared and plus, it's not going to be factorable further. It has to be a perfect square. So that would be my final factored answer. Doesn't matter what order you put them in since they're factored. See if you guys can try the next two. Factor it completely. Sometimes you will only be able to factor it into 2. Sometimes you will be able to factor it further. And it's an equation. Okay? So remember, when you see solve, you need to get answers. You need to get 4 answers. X equals 4 things. Follow the same process as we did above. So factor it first. Again, get rid of this a stuff. I would just say factor it. Get rid of those. Okay, so get rid of 2, 4, and 5 on the list. So rewrite the problem in standard form. That's important. Factor the quadratic and the quartic into 2 binomials. And this would be negative 9, positive 5. Okay. Now, you have 2 options at this point. You can factor further if you want. You do x plus 3, x minus 3, and then do the zero product property. Or a lot of students just like to go straight to the zero product property because it's shorter when you're solving. So the zero product property, remember, says that if 2 things are being multiplied and equal 0, one is 0 or the other is 0. So set each equal to 0. It actually is faster to do it this way than factoring it further if you're asked to solve. And then solve each one. So we would add 9 to both sides. We'll get x squared equals 9. Undo a square with the square root. Be sure to include your plus or minus. That's going to be 2 of your different answers. Because you would only have 2 answers instead of 4 if you forget your plus or minus. So it's plus or minus 3 are 2 of my 4 answers. Now on the other one, we're actually going to get complex answers, meaning we're going to have i's. So we're going to subtract 5 to get x squared equals a negative 5. And then whenever I square root that, I'm going to get x equals positive or negative. Bring out your I, so I, and then the square root of 5 isn't reducible, so it would just be I square root of 5. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 answers. Always double check that at the end, because a lot of you forget your plus or minus frequently, and that will kind of help you to realize that you didn't include it. Okay, see if you guys can try 11 and get your 4 answers. this little video for anyone watching. So for the homework, I want you to finish the 6-4 day 2 homework, which is on Google Classroom. That would be numbers 20 through whatever else was on, 21 through whatever else was on there. And then on the worksheet I just passed out, the front page is the only thing. I'm only assigning numbers, and if you want to circle them, 3, let me make sure I have these right. Yeah, 3, 7, 11, 15, and 17. So if you want to circle those. And then the rest of the page is yours in case you want extra practice on like factoring or solving if you're struggling with anything. The remainder of the packet, though, is going to be your study guide that we'll work on tomorrow. It says you have to complete it on notebook paper, but that's not true since I printed it out for you. That was originally on Google Classroom. So you guys will be working on the rest of that tomorrow in class, but if anyone wants to work on it ahead of time, you can. And then don't forget your quiz is coming up on Monday. So you guys have the rest of the class period to work on the rest of that homework and then on those problems. And if you're struggling, today would be a good day to ask. Garrett?
We got it.